You are listening to the $1 Billion Podcast. Welcome, folks, to the couch. This is the $1 Billion Couch with a couple of $1 billion guys. We've got some great topics today. So I think, do we get started with our ad?
Sure.
This is one of my favorite segments, and this is a repeat sponsor.
Wow.
Because
back for more?
The folks at Apple love us on this show. And this is obviously anti-Apple ad.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sweatshops in China kind of thing, you know?
So this is how it all started. So I've been calling Kaylee's iPhone 12 the government brick is what I call it's what I call it. And it's not because it's like anything to do with the government. It's because very similar to the government, they give you no flexibility on how you use the device. Mm-hmm. So if you don't like the way it's currently done, who cares? And you're chain locked into the Apple infrastructure, iMessage, iCloud, iMail, iApps, whatever their stupid stuff is that doesn't work, you're stuck to it.
You know what I was lamenting the other day? The fact that they got rid of the headphone jack in all phones. And you know who started that? Apple.
Yeah, no, their whole thing
Useless.
is we will force people to progress because we will not send like a...
And it's really going backwards. All of the progression.
I think the headphone jack thing is a big mistake industry-wide. I mean, my phone doesn't have a headphone jack. I find it absurd. But, you know, we will adapt to Bluetooth.
And oh, by the way, I have a deep dive coming on the damaging effects of using Bluetooth devices. I have personally gotten rid of them out of my life, and I will tell people why.
How did you get rid of Bluetooth devices? It's like where everything is going.
I went to a future sponsor, I won't give up the name yet, to a website that sells normal headphones that are not EMF devices.
Electromagnetic frequencies?
Yes. I have a deep dive on that coming too.
Oh, wow.
Of that. So
cool.
Get rid of Bluetooth if you can, please.
I definitely very Bluetooth heavy.
Yeah,
so I'm curious to hear the electromagnetic frequencies.
Okay,
so Kaylee's phone sends this warning that says out of storage, and she can't do anything on it. And she deleted like all of her pictures, a bunch of apps, restarted the phone multiple times, and it still will not let her do anything because it says out of storage. And she's like, I deleted like half my shit. And so I told him, like, this phone just sucks. I mean, I used to be Apple Care, and that's when I switched to Android, was during my stint at Apple. And I told him, like, are you ready to finally pick up a good phone? And so she went and bought the new OnePlus phone.
Hell yeah.
And
great phone.
I transferred her. Actually, she transferred a lot of her things over. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she went to Android Swift, and it explains how to transfer. Mm-hmm. And she's like, it's really this easy? And I'm like, yeah. And then she's using the phone, and she's like, this thing just works so much better.
Just works.
Than an iPhone. And she's like, I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. She's like, this is so much better. And I'm like, I know.
Bigger storage, better
I sit
camera.
here on a podcast and scream this time and time and time again to no avail. It's like I'm just yelling in space.
I'm in my own internal battle with Ellen. She wants to get the new iPhone, and she wants to get a new MacBook Air for, collectively, what, $3,000 for all that nonsense. And I'm like, it's been a fight for months that I'm trying to get her out of that.
The best Android phone is cheaper than the worst iPhone, and it's a much better device. I mean, this thing, we paid $99 at T-Mobile for the phone. Wow. Like, it was super cheap, and we just put it on the plan, whatever. And like, that plus a Chromebook is an ideal setup, because for those of you who don't know Android, they build it like a computer operating system and less like a phone. Mm-hmm. You have file directories, you have your downloads folder, your documents folder, your images. You can attach things to emails, the app synchronize. Like, it works much more like Chrome OS than it does like a phone operating system. I mean, how many times do you attach files to emails from your phone?
I mean, if you're using Google Drive and Gmail, it syncs so well with all your phone. Like, there's no reason not to do that. Just Google, take everything.
And she was like, yeah, I wish I had done it sooner. So I got some testimonials. I'm like, okay, first night, like, what are your thoughts? She goes, I love everything about it. I can't believe how fast it is.
Battery life's excellent.
Battery life, like her phone, she would charge it every night. You don't have to charge this thing every day. No. Like, and it's just overall, just in every category, a better device. So the folks at OnePlus, and so it's funny. In the United States, you cannot use a Chinese phone.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I don't love giving money to China, but I mean, everything we buy is from China, so.
No, I like that part of it. I like that the OnePlus is the Chinese company that penetrated the United States so that all their stuff works. You can't go with like a true Chinese, from China. Like the first, I got the OnePlus One. So this was back in, like, I had to ship it over in a boat for 2 months from China. This is back when I was in like early dental school to get this phone. And I had the OnePlus 1, the OnePlus 3, the OnePlus 6, and now I use the OnePlus 8. And I've been a OnePlus guy for years. And so the fact that they are now like a mainstream American company, you know, I'm very excited about. And so OnePlus is our sponsor today. Just overall
Great
better
company.
phone, cheaper. When something is cheaper and better objectively, like, I mean, I don't understand how
Yeah, I
you
mean,
don't just like that company.
And you can do what Kaylee did with go to T-Mobile and get the phone. If you could also just order it on Amazon.
Yeah,
and
it's like
just
$900 for the
for the
highest
highest.
end,
Comes
highest
right to
end
you.
version.
Put the SIM card in, easy transfer, done.
Put the SIM card in, Android Swift your way to Android, and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, the brick, the government brick that you are using right now, that swaddles your experience and does not let you deviate from the way that it is intended for grandma and grandpa, get off of it. I used to work tech support. Apple is built for the older generation that does not know how to use a mobile device.
And write into bdppod.com. I want to hear your stories about switching from evil company Apple to great company OnePlus.
Yes. The folks at OnePlus, round of applause.
Yep.
And the folks at Apple, see ya. Like, just another person off of the stupid platform. It gave me so much joy. And I was like, I don't even want to sell these devices. I just want to throw them in the trash.
There you go.
It's like so much more satisfaction.
That's how you really stick it to them.
Yeah, I want to throw some. What I decided is I'm actually gonna keep the phone. So we had to open a line. It just made sense financially. So stupid. But so I'm gonna keep the phone and build like an alias burner that I use on Craigslist, and like anyone that I don't want to spam my number, I'm gonna spam the iPhone.
There you go.
And then I'm gonna throw away the watch with satisfaction. Because I want to throw away an Apple device just to make it worthwhile. So,
beautiful.
You know, because if you sell the thing on Craigslist, it's like $100 or whatever.
Yeah,
like
then it
totally
stays in
worthless.
circulation. Then more people are using
Yeah,
it. You don't want that.
I don't want anyone else
Put a stop
receiving
to
an
it.
Apple notification on their Apple Watch.
Right.
That thing goes in the trash.
Yep.
So anyway, I got that one. That was my first segment done. I have other sponsors, other ads. I've come fully loaded with 5 other topics.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, I have. I think that, you know, I like it when we talk about things and a lot of different things in an episode. So I made sure I got 5 topics here. I'll go through them one by one, and you can kind of decide which way we take them, if we take all of them.
Sure.
So points.me is a website that I have been using to book. So you know how you hear about these people?
Definitely heard of that.
So I booked flights to Budapest.
Yep.
For 2 people for the same amount from Phoenix to New Orleans. Like same exact number of points.
It's like $700 to go across the country now.
Yeah. So for $700 in points value plus fees, I booked 2 people tickets from Phoenix to Budapest through London.
Nice.
Like that level of cheap use of points. I use this website called points.me, and it's really, really cool. You can find the cheapest way to book any flight anywhere. And it's like you just change your trip a little bit. Like I'll just land in this city and fly out of this city, but like I'm a third of the number of points spent compared to
So it could be like flying out of Mesa versus Phoenix.
No, it's always you always go out of Phoenix, but the trick is you take the airline's open seats on their routes. So sometimes there's like a Denver Frankfurt route that's wide open, and so you'll just go Phoenix, Denver, Denver, Frankfurt. And what I ended up doing is I was booking my honeymoon tickets, and
so where are you going? You have to go through the
itinerary. So this is the funny part is I initially booked 1 ticket, so I didn't book it. I just planned on paying for it. And for the number of points of 1 round trip ticket from Phoenix to London, I actually booked 3 tickets to Europe throughout the summer. So I'm actually going 3 times.
Nice.
And I did it with points.me. And so the 2 other trips are going to be really short, like 5 nights, just to make sure that they don't mess up with the kids' schedule too much. But points.me, I mean, I want to do a deep dive into status and points and really help people here, because I've realized how much of if you don't know how to navigate this space, you are paying, in my experience, 5 times more for a hotel or a flight than you could if you know how to
say
do it.
that most of our dentist owner listeners probably have the cashback type cards?
I sincerely hope not.
I would think that's more popular.
I would say that is really a bad idea.
Definitely, I would agree. But I think COVID like switched a lot of people from they don't travel as much, or they're like, oh, I'm not using these anyways. I might as well just get some cash back. But
yeah, and so like I don't think this is a deep dive, but I think it's like a snorkel, like a 10-minute, like a 10-minute
snorkel.
Yeah, just like a little bit under the water,
Yeah,
but like
okay.
not a deep dive.
This is how I prefer to be in the water, just like a little bit in it, but not really.
You can
in it.
see it clearly,
no,
but like you don't go that deep into
No,
it. But like
I'm standing if I can.
this is, in my opinion, this is a snorkeling topic in the future. I am now like I have the highest American Airlines status and I have the second highest United status now, and I just did a status match. So once you get like one status, you can get a bunch. And I really feel like this is worth listeners hearing more about, because I think that if anyone's into traveling, they should not be spending more than they have to. So anyway, Points.me is one of my topics. So have you seen The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary?
I tried it. It was awful, so I stopped watching it.
You hated it?
Yeah, I really didn't like it.
Oh, man.
It just didn't hold my attention. I don't know.
So I'm watching it for the first time, and I have never learned anything about Michael Jordan, because everything I've heard has just been nauseating from like secondhand fans of like, oh, he just stuck the shot, you know, like all the fanboys. And I'm like, I can't do this. This is like the lack of objectivity here. I just can't handle. And so then I'm really happy that the first time I watched Michael Jordan's documentary was like having not learned much about him. And I'm a huge fan of him as a player.
Yeah.
I think that where I find everyone missed it is the media sensationalistic mass media history of who he was. They just totally don't understand Michael Jordan. But like, dude, as a competitor, you've got to love his competitiveness. Yeah. I mean, like,
my favorite thing about him is how he would make enemies with anyone on the court and would just hate them during that game and would want them to lose more than he wanted. He's exactly how I try to do
that's it. He's exactly like the douchiest side of us.
No. I mean, this is how I think is best to be on a competitive, arena, is just, I'm not your friend. I'm actually your enemy for this 60 minutes. I'll shake your hand at the end of the game, but like we're not glad handing. I'm not like talking to you socially. You're my enemy here.
So on the Dream Team, the Dream Team was like the first time the Olympics had NBA players, and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan went at it so hard in practice. And Michael was getting calls, and Magic Johnson took the ball, and they have a video of it. He chucks it out of frustration to the top of the arena. And he goes, this is just like the fucking NBA, where Michael Jordan gets every call. And they were like pushing each other, punching each other during practice. Like, it was awesome. Like this, like NBA back when Michael Jordan was in the NBA, it was a dogfight. Like they literally beat each other up during games. Like, I mean, there was no replay review, so you couldn't see what these guys
the refs didn't call like nearly as much as the hand check.
Well, I mean, it happened every time. Yeah. So like you can't call a foul every single play. Like,
well, they do now, especially in college. Just watching March Madness is brutal how much these refs manage these games. And like,
oh, I mean, yeah, they're just giving Duke the title.
Oh, you're on this now. Coach K's last season, he's got to win.
Yeah. This isn't this dude. Have you not been watching the games?
Duke is not winning the title.
The refs are going to do everything they can to help them. Okay. Did you not see the Texas Tech game?
No, I didn't watch.
So 2 weeks in a row, Texas Tech and Arkansas, Duke got the game.
They blew Arkansas out though.
But so if you don't understand how officials fix games, it's sometimes hard to notice. Like they'll make the foul calls the same, but it's like it's more about pace. So they'll like keep Duke going on a run.
Yeah. So,
but then when Arkansas's on a run, they'll kill the momentum of the game and slow it down with calls.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Sense. So until you've understood the way that games are fixed, you can't really like watch it and know, until you've like, I guess, seen how they manage. It's more about tempo and pace than it is about like calls and crucial moments.
Huge in basketball.
Yeah, it's a game of runs. And so if you let Duke have their runs and you kill Arkansas's runs, and like Texas Tech, they couldn't even do that. And so they had to like give it to them at the end of the game. Like at the end of the game, every time Duke went to the basket, they'd get a foul. And so like you're just giving them 2 free throws every time.
New Orleans, are we going?
I am going to New Orleans.
All right. What if they lose the first game? What are you
doing? Then I sell my tickets.
Okay. So then you're not going.
Well, I mean, look, if Duke is in the championship game,
you should probably want to go to that.
So historic. At this point, my tickets that I purchased have appreciated fourfold.
I bet.
So the tickets that I bought for that game are now 4 times more expensive, and that's before Coach K's final game. So if Duke wins that game, I think they're going to appreciate like an insane amount. And I'm just deciding between, do I sell the tickets for a massive profit or do I go to the game? And I have my flights booked with points. So like I have my hotel booked. So it's like at this point, it was, because I bought really early, very inexpensive. So
man, if that's Kansas versus Duke, what a game.
I know. I mean, I can't wait.
Oh, and that would be awesome.
Like I mean, for Kaylee, like, can you imagine the frustration behind seeing Coach K's final game, the refs handing him the championship in front of you
That's so good.
in
Okay, all right,
person?
let's go
Like,
Duke.
I mean, I'm telling you, like and so for me, I lost a national championship to Duke as a fan, 2001.
Yeah.
And you never ever like that team ever again. And Wisconsin, same feelings. And she will have a forever hatred towards Puke if they beat them. That's just like the worst possible way to lose. Like the refs handing it to the guy on his way out.
Man, I'm gonna miss Coach K. That's tough.
What?
I love the college basketball coaches who are bigger than the programs. Like that's just a dying breed. Like who is the next generation of Boeheim, Coach K, Roy Williams? Who is that coach?
Bill Self and John Calipari and Mark Few. Those are the next.
Calipari has it. Self has no personality. You
Dude,
never hear
no.
You never hear a story in the national media about Bill Self.
I am sorry.
You don't.
You don't. Before this season, I never watched the Jayhawks.
It's not about that.
I've watched them most games this season.
He's not a national story ever.
No. I don't care about the media. He is one of the best coaches in college basketball.
Who gives a shit? I care about the one.
His team sucks. When you look at the players, you're like, they should not be good. Yet, somehow, they are doing extremely well because of him. He just develops people. And he's like an old-fashioned college basketball coach. He has a system, and it's gimmicky, and it works against worse teams, but it can get beat. But like his players develop as people. They are successful entrepreneurs past basketball.
Who cares?
He does it though.
No one cares.
He's very old-fashioned.
No one but you cares. I want to see Coach K fainting on the court when they lost the game because he's ill, and then that's his excuse for why he lost. Like, give me more of that, and less of Bill.
You just want more drama?
Yes.
You're like the typical fan.
I know. I want to feel the drama, and then we're losing that just
the sport is changing.
Yeah, it's terrible. And
so every sport is changing though. Baseball's changing, basketball's changing,
yeah, but there's still tons of
college basketball's changing.
Personalities and coaches in the NFL, for example. Like there's still like the Belichicks and the.
So do you know that Michael Jordan was like the most popular man on the planet in 1993? Like that level of popularity of a singular athlete will never happen again. Like I'm saying, like
the
now
times
people
are hated more,
Yeah, and it's
like Tom Brady's hated by a lot of people.
So what the NBA figured out, and so this is what the NBA did. So the NBA back when Michael Jordan was like getting into the league was like a nobody's league. It was like fifth most. It's like the hockey today, right? Like hockey's like kind of an afterthought in American sports, but like for the hockey fans, it's like really big. It was a lot like hockey. And Michael Jordan turned it into a global sport during the 92 Olympics. And after that, the league just blew up because they used Michael Jordan to grow globally and their revenues just exploded. And what the NBA figured out is it's better now to decentralize its star talent amongst many. So now they got KD, Giannis, Steph, Devin Booker, LeBron. Like the NBA's got like 7 or 8 guys that are as marketable as Michael Jordan was. But now, like back in the day, it was just Michael and then it was just LeBron. And like, okay, this doesn't work. Give one person way too much power. Let's like give it to a bunch of people and keep it within the league. And that's what they've done now.
How's LeBron doing? He
making
the 1 seed? Or
I will say this.
What's happening over
there?
I
am done with LeBron.
Oh!
No. So,
yes, Matt wins. All right. See you, LeBron. You're done.
How does Matt win?
Because LeBron sucks. He sucked forever. And not even making the playoffs. Oh, you really hate to see it. You hate to see the Lakers.
He's the best basketball player to ever play.
I know, and you hate to see him missing the playoffs.
Organizations have beat him.
Oh, it's really tough.
He had his time when they couldn't beat him.
Everyone hates to see this. This
is
awful.
What he has done in the NBA,
take no solace in this,
has forced every team to become smarter and better. And now
LeBron
teams are beating him, and he is not capable in his current style to win.
Because he sucks. I love it. This is great.
Wait. I don't understand how you're saying the best basketball player to ever play sucks. Like I'm good with saying he won't win. LeBron will not win another championship.
I'm a now kind of guy, and seeing the Lakers in the 10 seed, it really it hurts me.
He's still the best player in the league, though.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's tough. He cares about winning more than anything else. He doesn't care about being the best player in the league. He's an unselfish guy.
No. He cares about being the best player in the league, which is his downfall. Oh. He is more interested in his own personal ego of being the best.
That's right.
Than he is, and it worked when it was winning, right? When that style is winning, but when you don't adapt. And for LeBron to adapt, and he's tried, but like he just hasn't been able to get the right players, and his personality is coming in the way. And this is like every great's downfall is when they are no longer good enough to overcome their personality flaws, they downfall. And I do think that this season, I am seeing in my opinion, this is the beginning of the end of LeBron's.
This is so sad.
It's when he goes into legacy mode, and
Yeah,
he's just
this is
about
sad.
getting. So he's gonna beat
Play with
Kareem's
his
record
son,
for points.
you know, the whole thing.
Yeah, he's gonna play with his son. Like, he's interested in the other things because I think he's sort of realized now the amount of dedication and effort on a daily basis that it would take to win an NBA championship. He just doesn't have that anymore.
Shame. This is really a shame.
And I personally, I will call it right now. I think it's Suns or Warriors.
Suns are unstoppable.
I'm telling you, the Suns, I have season tickets. I've been watching them a lot. They have an offensive efficiency this year. I mean, they're putting up 140 points a game with ease. Like,
Hey,
it's like, to beat that, you just have to score.
I gotta say, look out for my Celtics. They're grasping at the 1 seed right now. They were in the 1 seed as of yesterday. They lost to the Heat. They lost, you know, Robert Williams, their center. He's like he tore his meniscus out for a month, but their defense is insane. They contest every shot. Oh yeah, watch out for the Celtics. They're good. Tatum is also like,
is he emerging?
Made a huge ascension this year.
I think that Danny Ainge, who's now like essentially the president of the Jazz, right? Mm-hmm. But when he was with the Celtics, one of just the shrewdest executives. Like, anybody did a trade with Danny Ainge, they'd lose. Like, it just like he just beat everyone at trades. Yeah, he was great. So it's interesting to see that Jason Tatum trade. I mean, to go from the pick in the draft,
that was a fleece,
to the third pick in the draft to take Jason Tatum and get a first pick next year. Like,
is Markelle Fultz even in the league anymore? I think he's not.
Markelle, he is currently experiencing psychological trauma behind his like jump shot.
I mean, he's been having that for years. So he's out of the league.
So he had a really, really bad injury to like his lungs, which changed like his torso mechanics, so he can't remember how he used to shoot.
COVID vaccine?
No, this is well before that. Anyway, so Markelle Fultz is a complete bust of a 1 pick. I mean, one of the worst busts ever.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so that was Last Dance.
Let me do IDI, and then we can come back to these.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, that wasn't done. Matt, I'm introducing topics and we're getting off task. I mean, let's see what you got. Let's go through questions, IDI, and we'll come back.
You want to do questions first or IDI first?
Well, we're like 22 minutes in. This is kind of like the typical IDI section.
All right.
Back when it used to be COVID Corner, which is not. It's IDI.
Right. Yes.
And so infectious disease intersection has a commitment to objectivity. So let's hear it.
IDI definitely has a commitment to objectivity. I'm going to start with something that's a little different. A tickler file thing. Okay, George?
This is season 2 COVID Corners. I told you so, or is this different?
No, this is,
So what is this? What category of information is this?
It's just it's a miscellaneous.
It's okay. So it's just the Matt being a douche.
So George, if you probably saw in the Oscars, shocking moment, Will Smith coming on stage smacking Chris Rock over a joke.
Wait.
Horrendous.
Okay, hold on. I keep hearing about the Oscars and I have no idea what happened. Can you, for the Under the Rock person, what happened at the Oscars that's a big deal?
Quick 30 seconds. So Chris Rock came under the Oscars. He was doing a monologue. He's not the host, but he was there just like telling some jokes. He tells a joke about Will Smith's wife being in the next G.I. Jane 2. Will Smith's wife is bald, shaves her head. She also suffers from alopecia, which Chris Rock didn't know. So he tells the joke. Will Smith laughs at the joke, looks at his wife. His wife is pissed. So they cut back to Chris Rock. And then all of a sudden, Will Smith goes on stage, open hand, smacks him with all his might, and goes back and sits down, and then yells back at him, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth," twice. And everyone is shocked. Like, he just straight up went up there and smacked him over a joke. He didn't know she had a medical condition, so he says. And he just completely lost it.
Okay.
So then the fall was, they tried.
Time out. Before we keep going, I think we need to break down film. So we paused the game.
Okay.
And now we're going to sit back on our couch, the $1 billion couch, and we're going to talk about what he should have done.
Okay.
So just hearing this, from my take on it, I've heard literally nothing about this incident. He laughed at first.
Yeah.
Then she explained to him why that was bad.
No, her facial expression, like, she was pissed.
I'm sure she whispered in his ear, explaining to her his feelings, right?
It was really quick, though, so maybe.
Yeah. And then that's where you control your emotions and you calm down, and you, after the show, behind the scenes, you go up to him and you use your words to tell him how that comment made you feel, right? We teach kids this all the time. We don't smack people. You go up to them. This is like children 101 stuff. This is what we say all the time. We say, We don't. We use our words to say our feelings, and we give them a chance to say, apologize for hurting our feelings on accident.
Yes.
And he hurt their feelings on accident. He didn't know.
Right.
It was very insensitive, but it was a mistake.
Mhm.
And you give him the opportunity to apologize. And if he apologized sincerely and says, "Oh, I am so sorry. I can totally relate. I had no idea," like really apologetic, then you say, "I understand." You feel better and you move on. That is the way it is supposed to happen. Why did this not happen that way?
I don't know. He snapped, like legit snapped. And they tried to remove him from the Oscars. He refused. And the timing was weird because he won Best Actor, which is the first time he's ever won that award or ever been nominated for that award the same night. And he gives this weird speech, standing ovation. It was all very weird.
What was his speech weird? Why was it weird?
It's tough to even like. He was just saying a lot of nonsense. He was crying. He did not apologize for what he did. He was kind of defending it a little bit. It was very bizarre. Just a weird night.
See, this is someone that like something bad happened to them and their reaction was so bad that like it negates what happened.
It was the biggest night in his career and it completely overshadowed it.
That's horrible.
Yeah, terrible.
So now in our chat, there was this comment that said like, what was the GIF that I saw where it was like crazy, like famous people are crazy, or what was it like?
I don't remember.
Like when they get famous, they just totally lose sense of reality and like, I think I should go pull that up. But anyway, keep going with the story.
So bringing it back to IDI. So,
okay. Yeah. How did this come back to IDI?
As I mentioned, Will Smith's wife has alopecia. Well, fun fact, because before I say this, so a lot of people thought the slap was fake, right? Like it was like a bit. That was like the initial reaction until you saw the unedited version that showed him yelling and it made it very clear that it wasn't a bit. Well, not so fast, my friend. Pfizer has an alopecia drug in phase 3 of trials. Might they want to use the Oscars to build up more awareness about alopecia? Because a lot of people are talking about it now. To give some more people in the know that they are bringing out a drug for this condition?
No.
No?
I don't buy that for a second.
Well, I would just say put that in the tickler file.
Okay. Dude, an actor lost control of his emotions and made an ass out of himself.
I'm just stating facts. Pfizer.
I don't think he's doing that
Pfizer,
in cahoots with a drug company.
Pfizer sponsored the Oscars.
What?
They have a drug in phase 3 clinical trials for alopecia. It's now very
But what
much
percent of people have alopecia?
I don't know. But it's now very much in the news.
I mean, I would imagine the general market cap of the only incentive that they have to do this is to distract from the COVID debacle.
I mean, maybe.
They're not going to make a lot of money on the alopecia drug. Like, that's not a very big disease.
They might.
I mean, look at how many people need a COVID vaccine versus how many people need alopecia therapy.
Listen, it's part of their diversification of their, offerings.
I'm not buying this for a second.
Just put it in the tickler file. That was it. Okay. Getting into our main subject for today, we're going to talk about how the White House in 2021 and onward has used the media to push the vaccines.
Oh, yeah.
And then shocking stuff. So the organization called The Blaze did a Freedom of Information Act, which is my favorite act in history. This is the reason we got Fauci's emails from back in the day. This Freedom of Information Act, whoever did this in the 70s or whatever.
No. One of my topics is WikiLeaks.
Oh, good.
And I think we should talk about this a lot. So keep going, and I'll talk about WikiLeaks in a minute.
So
to piggyback off
through this Freedom of Information Act request, it's been learned that United States of Health and Human Services, the HHS, purchased advertising from major news outlets like ABC, NBC, CBC, CNN, Fox, NBC, newspaper outlets, digital media outlets, and hundreds of local TV and news, all pushing the same thing, that vaccines are safe and effective. And
wait. Is this a commercial or is this paying for informational content?
This is a commercial. This is paying, influencing people on the news to say certain things.
Oh, okay. Alarm raised.
Uh-huh.
All right. Do you know what? The federal budget's $3 to $4 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, any payment from that $3 to $4 trillion to the largest news organizations in this country is an immediate violation.
So let me read you the law.
How much did they pay them? Do we have that amount?
So Congress appropriated $1 billion in 2021 to spend on activities to quote unquote strengthen vaccine confidence in the United States.
What?
The HHS has not revealed how much advertising dollars were spent on the different outlets. We just know their budget roughly.
So they spent $1 billion.
$1 billion on a vaccine campaign in different outlets. I mean, that's why you would see it everywhere. Commercials, like every time you turn on TV, you see some kind of COVID thing, like just beaten in our fucking face. Well, anyway, so.
Oh my gosh, I have to break this down.
So the federal law, I'm going to read it to you what it authorizes. So the federal law authorizes the HHS to act through the CDC and other agencies to award contracts to public and private entities to, quote, carry out national evidence-based campaign to increase awareness and knowledge of the safety and effectiveness of vaccines for prevention and control of diseases, combat misinformation about vaccines, and disseminate scientific and evidence-based vaccine-related information with the goal of increasing vaccination rates across all ages to reduce and eliminate vaccine-preventable diseases. As we have seen, COVID is not a vaccine-preventable disease with the current vaccines we have. That is directly going against what the federal law says.
Yeah, so I think that we have exactly what we needed to hear right here. So the goal is to increase vaccine across all ages.
So this law was written for something like a polio in mind, right? Like getting influence the anti-vaxxers of polio or for what other genetic or diseases to be okay with the vaccine.
Okay, so I need to. Do you have any more information you need to share before I like just really get riled up here? Because this got me very riled up, triggered.
I have a little more, but you can get in it.
So in my American deep dive, and a few episodes ago, I went through the American Revolution, the lobbying reform. Like, I have in depth understood the mechanism of corruption in the United States government, and I need to break this down financially only, so that we can see the level of corruption that this is. So, $1 billion. Let's pause. A third-party institution is paying media outlets $1 billion for messaging campaigns. Pfizer's profit pre-COVID in a quarter was $500 million. So a company like Pfizer, massively large, would not be able to afford
that kind of marketing
spend on their own. Do you see that?
Yep.
But $3 to $4 trillion budget. So the federal budget is $3 to $4 trillion, which means it's 3 to 4,000 billion dollars. So this is a fraction of a percent of federal spending.
Wait, let me break this down further. So their customer, the United States government, so they're selling $1 billion in vaccines to the United States government. That customer is also doing the marketing for them out of their own pocket. So taxpayers are paying for the vaccines and for the marketing spend from the customer who's buying the vaccines from Pfizer. Is this not the most brilliant strategy by Pfizer you've ever heard in your life?
Yeah, and the best part is from a Pfizer business perspective, I call this. I have written a report on this internally, and I have looked at it objectively. From $50 million in profit in a quarter, $500 million in profit to quarter, to what was it, $8 billion in profit a year later in that same quarter? Like 12 months later to go from $500 million in profit to $8 billion in profit. It is, I call it string growth theory. It is like they've gone to another dimension to be a whole different company financially. They're like on the par of Facebook now in terms of like profitability metrics, in terms of
the
like
customers sinking billions of dollars into a marketing campaign for their own product.
I mean, and this is $1 billion in ad spend to increase. And they even say it. The goal is to increase vaccine across all ages. In my opinion, a worthy goal should have been to increase objective understanding about the vaccine. Like, if you're really going to be a true government, in my opinion, you need to give the people the information and you let the people make the decision that's best for them. So publishing and notifying across all the news channels objective information about the vaccine, like this many people do it. If your age is this is your percent chance of give people information to make decisions. Don't give people faulty information to influence decisions, right? There's a big, big difference. And it's funny because when you have $4,000 billion being spent per year on the federal budget, like within the 10 square miles of DC, like there's not a lot of expenses. So you get to waste all this money. I mean, Matt, that's 0.25 of a percent, 0.025% of the budget. 0.025% of the budget is $1 billion. Yet there are very few private organizations that could afford that level of ad spend because they don't have that level of excess profit sitting there to just dump into news stations. So now the news stations, right? Think of it. That's probably one of their largest ad accounts.
Sure.
So they're going to do anything to please these people. They're going to run anything They're going to. You think that their content in the non-paid segment is going to
be influenced by this?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You think they're not going to say certain
and the
things?
number of Americans that are watching this, like the level of corruption here.
It's across all political spectrums. It's Fox News, it's CNN. It is the entire news agency mainstream that we know it was influenced by these ad dollars.
So now the organization is called HHS, right? So there is a subcommittee in the House or the Senate. I'll be honest, I don't know which one does the initial proposal of the budget. I believe it's the House. And so let's call it the House, but it could be the Senate. So in the House, there's a committee because there's more people, so there's more committees. That is the HHS. So the Pfizer representatives, those HHS committee folks in the House are in Pfizer's pocket, and like they are being treated extremely well. They're being flown, and like they are proposing a $1 billion, which is 0.025% of the federal budget. It'll slide under the fix. No one knows about it. No one talks about it. And it's open source intelligence. So if you want to go find it, go find where that $1 billion went. It's 0.025% of the federal budget.
And this is why it was so important that they called it a COVID vaccine and not what I think it should have been called, a COVID shot, like a flu shot. Because it's called a vaccine, they can reference this law that I just read and say, this is just to promote vaccine confidence. It says so we can do it right here in the law.
It's the classification of the drug.
Important.
It's not, they don't put it with the flu shot, even though it behaves much more like a flu shot because you get it like every 6 months. That's what they're trying to do. That's a flu shot. That's not a vaccine.
No.
A vaccine is a singular event that protects you for a long period of time.
Getting it and spreading it.
Yes. Like, like all of the, vaccines that you get growing up that protect you for a lifetime from chickenpox and all those things.
Now think about this. All these money flowing to these major news outlets. Isn't it extremely predictable that you haven't seen any media news outlets, any of them, talk about vaccine injuries, heart inflammation on young kids, athletes suddenly dying on the field, or the 55,000 pages of clinical data
I have to get my phone
the FDA was forced to release on the Pfizer vaccine last month? 55,000 pages on it.
What I would like to see,
you never hear any of the news agencies talking about it because they're in the pockets of the federal government, which is an extension of Pfizer in this regard.
I would like to see CNN's revenue.
While you do that, George, I want to give you...
Oh my gosh.
Did it go way up?
No. You're going to hear how big of a percentage of the revenue it is. So total revenue for the 3 major cable news increases modestly. So CNN's total revenue as an organization, 1.7 billion.
Okay.
Fox News, 2.9 billion. MSNBC, 1.1 billion.
Okay.
So let's take that $1 billion and let's split it 4 ways between ABC, CBS. Okay, maybe like 5 or 6 ways. I mean, we're looking at like a very significant chunk of the revenue, and that's probably all profit.
Oh yeah,
like
big chunk.
I mean, this is a very substantial. Media organizations are small in revenue but large in influence and power, and I mean, like, news organizations do not have a lot of opportunities to make money, and this is substantial.
Can I give you like my overarching theory on all this stuff?
Sure.
I want you to comment on this after I go through it. Okay.
So this is where we're leaving objectivity.
Yeah,
and we're entering Matt's biased world of his opinion.
This is Matt's theory. For sure. All right. So COVID comes, and it getting towards 2021, and people are dying. People are dying from COVID, and the White House needs a fix for this issue. So pharma companies start developing a vaccine quickly and are allowed to avoid normal protocols in doing so. The White House either blindly trusts or participates in the fraud committed by Pfizer in their faulty trials. Pfizer 100% committed fraud in their trials.
Well, you can't just say that.
That's my opinion, and that'll be shown in the coming years.
Okay.
So the White House, commits to buying billions of dollars of these vaccines at the end of 2020 and early 2021. So now they're left with a choice, right? Like, they've committed to buying all these vaccines to protect their public. Now their only option really is to blast Americans with this, money into the news outlets that we talked about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. Meanwhile, the vaccines perform out to be, mostly ineffective in you getting it and you spreading it, and somewhat effective at preventing people from dying. And at times they can be dangerous, as we saw last week. Now, the White House is in too deep with their rhetoric, and there's no way out. So what do? They double down. They continue the massive spending on vaccine advertisements, and they install vaccine mandates to get more and more people to take it because they're on the hook for this money. That is my theory on how we've gotten to where we are, and please poke holes in that.
Yeah, so I'll kind of say it from a political perspective, and so I think that my deep dive into American politics has really helped me remove conspiracy from my worldview. And what I think happened, and this is my own thoughts, is that nobody knew. You're right. Until you give the vaccine at volume.
Pfizer knew in their trials.
I'm saying in the government.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like the White House.
That's what
didn't
I mean.
Know,
it was
like
either
the CDC didn't
like
know.
I said, they were either.
They wouldn't have pushed this knowing what would have happened. Right?
Like I said,
they didn't have all the information.
Either they knew about the faulty trials.
No, they didn't know.
I mean, most likely they didn't.
You think the CDC is pushing this out to that many people knowing what would have happened? I mean, the millennial deaths is insane.
I think that's probably true. I also think nothing surprises me.
But this is a cover your ass, right?
It's that's like what I was kind of getting at.
All of the people who are currently making decisions are the ones who made that bad decision, and they don't want to face the consequences for that because it's career ending. And so they're just going to CYA. And this is what Washington does all the time.
Yeah, but in doing so, people have died from this en masse.
Dude, do you know how many people died in Iraq and Afghanistan over the course of 20 years?
Like 150,000? No, that's
no. Citizens of those countries.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of people over American politicians not wanting to admit fault in entering those countries when they should not have.
I think it's
like even Obama's entire term, like people really glorify Obama. He lied to the public about Afghanistan the entire time.
I mean, the drone program under Obama went way up.
And I mean, Obama, Obama, I really respect as a president. Where his downside was he trusted his cabinet a lot. And so the people around him that were telling him things, he went with them, in my opinion, a little bit too much. And the Department of Defense was very doubling down on Afghanistan and Iraq. And, it wasn't until, ironically, Trump came in and just very little humanitarian care and just pulled out. But it was just, so I would argue that this is just a big CYA at this point.
Yeah.
And I think we're just, the season 2 of COVID Corners, cover your ass from Washington, and we're just going to poke holes in it.
It's got to the point you can't. So my final point on an idea, and then we'll close out, is, you can't trust whatever reporting you get from any of the major news outlets. You have to go to places like Substack. Is really the only place you get, authentic people without agenda-driven, stuff. And here's a quote I'll leave you from Dr. Malone's Substack. So he's talking about the data dump I talked about, the 55,000 pages of documents that the FDA was required to hand over about Pfizer. What this FDA data dump documents in the government has been well aware that they are not fully safe and has hidden this information from us. How that really matters for Pfizer is that this indemnification clause requires that Pfizer disclose known adverse effects, and this documentation demonstrates they did not do so. So a lot of lawyers are licking their chops over this because it seems to indicate a break in the veil that may allow legal action, basically due to fraud and concealment of the risks to the general public. Lawsuits are coming. Get ready for them.
Wow.
Thank you.
So I just to close the segment, and I will always tie this back. So in Iraq, Afghanistan, over those 20 years, or I mean, the quick numbers I pulled.
I don't want you to read those numbers.
7,000 Americans died in 20 years, and 177,000 citizens of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria died in that war. So, and Pakistan. So those were all, as our military, we killed, nearly 200,000 people.
That's absolutely tragic. And I think it's becoming more and more known that this is America's modus operandum forever in their wars. There's a lot of collateral damage. And
so I'm reading a book right now that goes through this, and the number of people so WikiLeaks, I think we need to talk about WikiLeaks now.
All right, talk quickly, then we'll do questions.
Actually, let's skip WikiLeaks. We'll come back to another week. So we'll come back to dude, this one's funny. So Kaylee went to the office yesterday to get Zoom whitening. And she was so impatient and ramped it up, and then she was super sensitive for the rest of the day. I have a really funny story about that. I'll tell it another week.
They never last either, those Zoom whitenings. You look great afterwards, and then it kind of goes away in a couple days.
No, it doesn't.
Oh yeah, that was my experience and patience I had in my old office.
I mean, we do it all the time. I like Zoom whitening anyway. So, but yeah, she did it. It was hilarious. So I'll tell that story another week. So I'll save Last Dance, Zoom whitening, WikiLeaks, and then I think we should talk about the being famous and what happens to you mentally.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think that's a great topic.
Let's do questions. We'll close on that.
Yeah.
So this is a question from Alex. Thank you for writing in. Can you keep the question a little shorter next time? It's a freaking book, so I got to read this whole dumb thing.
Can I read it?
Yeah, go for it. It's for you, anyways.
Yeah, I feel like Alex and I have a lot in common on a lot of our history discussions. So love the discussion on specialization last episode as it relates to George's pursuit of golf excellence and his kids' development as athletes and competitors. I recently finished Range by David Epstein of Sports Illustrated fame. In it, he argues for the exposure of oneself and one's progeny to multiple disciplines in an effort to create, yes, thank you, a well-rounded skill set to draw from performing optimally in one's ultimate chosen path specialty. He calls into question yes, thank you. I have been calling this into question as well, the 10,000 hour rule, citing that rules apply most predictably in arenas with fewer variables, golf being an example, along with music. Chess is a pattern recognition. Golf, George suggests this as well. Contrast with 10. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll skip part of your question, Alex. And I'd like to hear your take on what you feel the limits of statistics-driven optimization are on basketball, tennis, etc., with multivariant that chess and golf. Each sport has evolved a ton in the analytics revolution. How much runway remains? Thank you. Matt, typically, how long should a male's son his...
Different question. We'll get to that.
What? Okay, hold on. I got to read this question and I'll go ahead. Is this also Alex? This seems like an Alex
that's
thing.
From someone else.
Matt, typically, how long should a male sun his balls for optimal testosterone production? Okay, can we get an answer to that one first?
Yeah, so I have a new protocol that I'm going with.
Wait, so you sun your balls?
Yes. So I'm reading more and more about the benefits of direct sunlight. So I don't laugh at this. I'm going to do a deep dive and you'll see. So I get 30 minutes of sunrise in the morning. I stare pretty much at the sun. And then in midday, I get about 15, 20 minutes of direct sunlight on my naked body.
In your yard?
Yeah, I'm naked in my pool yard. And I make sure my balls are exposed. And
neighbors can see this?
No, there's a fence. If they're in the second floor of their house.
Yeah, they for sure can see this. I mean, someo's in their home office upstairs, like, oh, there's the naked guy.
Matter. Enjoy the
He's
show.
He's going to be there for exactly 20 minutes.
Enjoy the show. So my naked balls get sun every day.
That's awful.
About 20 minutes or so. And then I get the sunrise.
And there's a Grim Hood sunning my balls, sunrise, midday, sunset. Like, is this a Twitter follow here?
Yeah. I'm gonna do.
So there's a Twitter follow that talks about sunning your balls. Okay.
Yeah. So Grim Hood is the best follow on Twitter that I've ever encountered. He's a doctor, and he's big on a lot of the supplements I take. He's big on the EMF thing I'm trying to get out of my life and the sunlight. Oh, he's excellent.
Okay.
I'll talk about him later.
Alex, thank you for that question. It was an amazing question, and I'm going to summarize it in other words. So what Alex is saying, and this is something I've arrived at on my own, is they talk about this 10,000 hour rule. And it's like spend 10,000 hours getting incredibly good at one thing. And the thing I've learned is like, well, I could spend 10,000 hours getting 80% as good at 20 things. If I spent my 10,000 hours differently, more efficiently. And so what I've started doing, and I had this shift. So I think dental practice management was the one area in my life that I dedicated 10,000 hours to. And like in this industry, there's very little that I don't know. But I don't feel like doing that anywhere else. I think, crypto is probably the only other place that I'll have 10,000 hours in. But like, there really isn't another place. And I found a lot of value in knowing a little bit about a lot. And maybe not like a little bit, but like a very efficient sum. Like I spent an efficient maybe 30 hours on many other things. And what Alex is saying is with statistics and analytics, people can shorten your learning curve. And it's better, in my opinion, to practice the skill of being good at many different things. So, and like for athletics, right? Interdisciplinary athletes. So like Michael Jordan growing up, he played baseball, he played basketball, he played, whatever the spring sport was, and spring is baseball, fall, maybe football, like, right. So like, instead of going all in on a singular thing, bouncing around between many things when you're young to pick up many different, like, I call them languages, like a language. I'm fluent in this. And it's like, it's not another language. It's like another set of vocabulary. Right. And so, this is something that I've actually begun to realize is there's more value in being a generalist than there is in being a generalist of many things and being a specialist in one thing.
It's becoming less and less common for the kids these days. It's more common to, I get a lacrosse coach and I play lacrosse year round, or golf or tennis or whatever the sport is. It's just, it's sad. I love the aspect of different seasons, different sports.
In my opinion, it's the better way of doing it, just objectively, because you're giving your brain a variety of different ways to improve. And like, Matt, how many times do you play golf and you're like, man, my experience in basketball really helps me here? I think it happens to me fairly often.
I probably never had that thought, but thinking about it a lot, I'll probably come up with something. Yeah.
I try to take one thing I do well in one sport and apply it to another sport and accept it in, like, I can shortcut a strength by comparing them.
Uh-huh.
And what Alex is saying is spot on. It is so valuable to, like, I mean, how many times have we talked about different business breakdowns on this show of different industries and things you can learn for another industry, right? Like, this is the same thing.
Especially if you're just playing like a solo sport, like a golf your whole life, and you just play golf.
Yeah,
and you never have a team aspect of anything.
You're going to peak out. Like,
Yeah.
you can get better by taking breaks from golf and going to other sports and then coming back to golf and going, like, kind of having like a rotation of like different seasons, and every year you get better
like
at each
main
one.
sport, but you need to have some other things.
I think a main sport is only for professionals.
Well,
I think for recreationals, you should deviate between multiple sports.
Well, definitely. But I'm just thinking of like a kid who ends up developing to be on the PGA Tour. Like, they probably did spend a lot more time on golf in their youth than, fully rounding out.
So let me talk about Miles for a minute. He's our 6-year-old. His teacher has described him. This is what his teacher said. The smartest kindergartner she has ever seen.
Wow.
And she's been around for like a long time. I mean, this kid is like just exceptional at everything, and he is hyper competitive. And he can't stay in one sport for too long because he gets bored.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we let him bounce between basketball, golf, soccer. Those are the 3 sports that we really like want to really have our kids rotate between, because those are the ones I rotate between. And so I want to always be better than them at each of those sports. And my whole idea is like, well, Miles is 6. So if I just play each sport with Miles, I will always stay better than him until a certain point when he like dedicates 10,000 hours to a singular sport. But in a generalist view, I will always be better if I go at the same pace as him. And that's like the thing, is I'm using my kids' athletics to get better at these sports too. So I can always beat them. And
his athleticism, he got, growth spurt, puberty, athleticism. I mean,
when they're like 16, they'll start beating me.
Yeah,
that's what I view as like I'm good with a high schooler beating me at something. But until then, I will be offended.
Yeah, I mean, if they're beating you one-on-one at basketball at the age of 16, they're probably going to play varsity for their school, I would imagine. Like, they would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that if I'm being honest and realistic, I think I'm capable of reaching a college level of athletics in those 3 sports.
What college?
Like D3.
Okay.
Like D3 college.
Okay, that's fine.
Like not D1, like, because I'm not physically talented enough, like innately, to be better at them. But like, I can peak in college level of performance, and I think I can do that through strategic self-control, like discipline.
For basketball and golf, I've never seen you play soccer, so for the other 2, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think basketball wise, I play a lot of college players one-on-one, and I mean, it's 50-50 if I'll beat them or not.
Not that good. I've always had that experience when I play like a really good.
Yeah, like I played this guy at BYU and beat him.
Good.
Like, he was a starting player at BYU, sophomore. He's like big. I beat him.
One-on-one is definitely a different skill than like being good.
Yeah,
at
I'm really hard to beat
basketball.
one-on-one because I played analytics-based approach, and like, it's just hard to beat me. You have to be very efficient on offense to beat me.
You have to out-tough me.
Anyway, so Alex, great question. And
let's talk about the famous stuff.
Okay, that's a great one. So I'm going to read the GIF that was sent in our chat. We had this was a great GIF, I thought.
So this came about. I follow this guy Bow-Tied Bull on Twitter. He's a crypto guy, and he's big proponent of staying anonymous. I mean, his Twitter profile is anonymous, and he'll oftentimes link stories of like crypto expert comes to New York City. Just saw it the other week. Crypto expert in New York City wearing a $400,000 watch gets shot multiple times. And it clearly like they were waiting for him to be there. Like, just being anonymous has a lot of benefits to it.
So when you reach a certain very high level of fame, your narcissistic brain snaps and reality is just gone. The Oscars is frequently a celebration of psychopaths in a room filled with other psychopaths.
They are certainly psychopaths.
That's the tweet. And I think the thing that we've seen, and we've seen this personally too, reaching a level of success that is not common will make someone feel an internal level of importance that is not common, and will then amplify whatever quirks in their personality exist. And, I've experienced this on a small scale in micro pieces, and I hate it.
Yeah, but you have awareness around it so that
so
you can
for me,
sometimes catch it.
I've been very intentional about not losing who I am no matter what happens. And like, it It's so true, and it's so hard, and it's very natural. And I think that like
Now imagine being like famous.
so let me tell a Michael Jordan story from The Last Dance. There was a Senate race in North Carolina when he was a player, and there was this black guy running who was like very idealistic, and then there was this like long-term incumbent Republican candidate who was very racist, like very openly racist. This is back in the early 90s, so like kind of normal for, you know, people in the South. And he refused to come out and say anything against this person and even state any preference in the campaign. And his idea was, he said, Republicans buy sneakers too. And Michael Jordan's whole career, he operated under the mantra of my money is more important than my beliefs.
I don't necessarily like that approach for him.
I don't either. But it comes a point when people pick the money and power over themselves, and what that creates is an internal conflict where they feel the need to express themselves in whatever way they can. And like Dennis Rodman was just like the weirdest dude, like, you know, and like these celebrities, they just like really lose touch.
Have you
and I don't think that's bad though.
Have you listened to the Ricky Gervais 2020 Golden Globes
No.
speech? Oh my God, you gotta. It's 8 minutes. It's probably a little long to play on this thing. But listen to it when you get home.
What are some of the highlights?
He just spends the entire time railing on how self-important, you know, all these actors think they are, how they know nothing about the real world. They've spent little time in school. Like they don't, like he's basically telling them that when you get up on stage and accept your word, don't make it some political statement that you're lecturing the American public on something. Like, you know, zero about what it means to be a normal person.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I think that we don't, like, Matt, do you want, so you understand this better than anyone else. So let's pick a Fortune 500 company, just any Fortune 500 company, very benign, non-political.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Can you pick one that's non-controversial? I can't.
It's tough.
Let's call it Google.
Yeah, sure.
Google's kind of benign, right?
Yeah, pretty benign.
Do you want the founders of Google to think like average people?
No.
Do you want the CEO of Google to think like everyone else?
No.
No. You want people in certain positions to be different, right? And you don't want actors to be like regular people, because then they're not going to be very creative and good at what they do, right? So like the things that make them great are also the things that make them weird. And they just need to be aware of the fact that they're weird.
That's the problem.
It's
lack of awareness.
And that's, for me, it's like when you listen to the show, you and I feel like I'm trying to be direct about the fact that we are not normal. We are unusual. And listening to us, you are getting a different perspective. Take from it what's appropriate for you, right? And like, it's impossible to live the daily life of us and not have it change you as a person. How it changes you is your choice. And I think that, like, I mean, Matt, for us, like, we deal with criticism about us and who we are all the time. Like, it's going to change you. Like, normal people don't deal with that level of scrutiny, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
All right. Why are you laughing?
I don't know. It's funny.
What's funny about this?
It's just weird, man.
It's weird. It's odd. And it's like, you know, early on with Richard, like, I remember the first phone call, I was like, I have no desire to be well known, and I would rather be behind the scenes the whole time. And it's still my least favorite part of this is the notoriety. You know,
I mean, I'm going back to Tufts in May and giving a speech, and the room's gonna they're estimating like 70 people are gonna be in the room. Like in the place that I used to watch lectures and sit in the back and goof off. Like,
yeah,
I'm up there now.
I've had that experience.
It's so weird.
And that actually, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, no,
I'll be honest. I did not get weird at the dental school thing, because schools are like so innocent. It's all about education. I really like the environment of academia. I like a soft spot for schools. But for me, it's like, you know, just
you know what's weird for me is when people know things about my life that I didn't tell them, or like they're not my friend. They're just like, they, you know, come meet me somewhere and like they'll know something about me that it's like, oh, you know that that's what I just did, or that's what I'm like.
So
strange.
It's called a parasocial interaction, and this is something that social media has created, right? It's like
definitely.
when you've consumed, and this is the idea. Like, so 400 people are listening to this episode right now. So we are with 400 people for 1 hour. Matt and I have 24 hours in the day. we don't have 1 hour per 400 people to think about you, but you 400 are thinking about us for 1 hour, right? So
Sure.
like there is a one-way connection that is not reciprocated. Like I don't know who the 400 people listening, and that's what they like. They like remaining anonymous. You know, as audience members, you don't like people knowing too much about you. You're private, and it's like, but we don't get that opportunity, and we are trading the opportunity for impact and purpose in exchange for our own privacy. And that is a trade we chose and we make, and you shouldn't feel bad for us, but it comes with pros and cons. And the pros are it allows us to do what we enjoy for a living. It allows us to create impact. It allows us to feel good about ourselves for like the company that we're building. And in exchange, we lose a part of ourselves. And every person needs to go through that process of like mourning the fact that you will not live an average life. And like that is just a process that everyone in a position of influence and power will have to experience. And in my opinion, people do not go through the process of understanding this transformation in their life that they did not choose. They cope with it in other ways by expressing themselves freely and like trying to make the best of it. And like, you know, it's going to be confronting at some point. But like it's it's just the way that the internet has allowed things to evolve. The people with the best ideas will get the most followers, will get the best traction, and will get like, you know, will be able to do well off of it. It and also will have to deal with the
downsides.
impact on them personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think everyone listening is gonna experience some version of all that, and not even just with stuff they post on social media. Like I think everyone listening is probably gonna live in a different life in some way that's not the norm, and you'll experience kind of the same thing.
Oh, social media is a great example. Yeah, everyone can relate to this on social media.
Right, yeah.
Like when you post something, you're like, how many likes did I get? Did
But see,
someone
that-
not like it? Like
yeah,
who liked it? You know, like that stuff.
Well, that's what's different because I don't post much on social media, so that's why it's weird when someone knows it, like, oh, I said that on the $1 Billion podcast or something.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't, like you just don't. I don't. You see it that way because
We say a lot of things.
Yeah, we say a lot of things. I'm just talking to you and I'm looking at a screen there's no one
Like
there.
that comment that I made about Miles. Like I don't think I'm gonna like remember saying that. And then someone's like, "Oh, your 6-year-old's really smart." I'm like, "Oh, how'd you know that?"
Are you tracking me? Listening through my phone? What's going on?
Yeah, like what's going on? You know, and it's very unusual. But then also like I have that same relationship with people that I've never met. Like,
oh yeah, me too.
if I had the experience of walking up to some of my idols, I would be the exact same person. And like for me, I'm like, okay, like they don't want to be bothered by me.
Right.
And I understand that because like I have that same experience. But the ones I really enjoy are the audience members. And I was telling Graham this, like that push through the parasocial interaction and like are like become you kind of feel like you get to know them too. Right. Like when I get to know an audience member and like I get to you know, understand about their life, then it's like a two-way street and it becomes, you know, there's reciprocation there. But when it's like only, and then like when they meet you, you know, there's a lot of times a build up and then they expect something and like,
a lot of times they
know,
think you're, I don't know if it's not untouchable is the word. They just think like
they don't think you're human.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I had that experience with the Florida dental students thought that of me. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like around your age and like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
you
like,
want to be like their
I'm like-
peer, and they yeah, it's just not that way.
very odd.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things about. So I haven't talked about this on air, but so at my wedding there's going to be Buddhist vows. So I'm
Oh,
actually
nice.
like, if I had to classify myself in one category, I would call myself
You're Buddhist.
a Buddhist. Yeah. So and one of my favorite things about the religion, and I don't follow the religion, I follow the philosophy, is what I would call it. I'm not religious, but Siddhartha himself never claimed to be better than an average individual. Like his entire life, he's like, I'm just one person. I'm just one, and like I'm not unique. And like I have some unique thoughts, but like I myself am not some like God sent like here to save the world. Like he never told anybody that, and I really like that mantra of like people who have accomplished things that are unique are still regular people. And I think that Hollywood loses sense of that, and they treat themselves like they're better than everyone else, and they have people serve them, and they have this like whole complex around it. And like if you're being served every day like you're special, it's going to change your. I mean, if your daily life every day is telling you you are special, you are unique, everyone wants a piece of you, like you know, it's going to change the way you think to be very narcissistic,
especially
and all
if
about
your
you.
upbringing was in that world.
Yeah,
it's
like if
probably,
you're a child like that, like that's
right.
even worse.
It's probably different for like a Taylor Swift who grew up in a very normal upbringing and now is hugely famous versus someone who grew up in LA to parents were actors and were in that world always, just kind of normal for them.
And I think that it's like I've gravitated more towards the people who are lesser known but much more powerful. So like I found them to be, in my opinion, better places to learn from because they didn't have the fame. I think the fame is what screws people up.
It really does.
I don't think it's the money. I think it's fame, and I think it's like that. Just daily reinforce that you are the most important person in your life every single day. Like that is just not a healthy thought. And I feel like for me, that's why I'm really thankful for the kids because you know they don't treat me.
Oh yeah,
that way.
they couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to hang out with you.
That's
Like,
just dad.
yeah, I know. And you know, it's great and it's grounding. And it's like you hear a guy like Jeff Bezos talk, and in my opinion, he has one of the better mindsets around this. He's like, I like to do regular things every day. I like to wash the dishes. I like to cook. Like, I like to remind myself that I'm a human. I like to kind of like, he doesn't have many people contact him every day. He stays by himself with his family. And like, you know, the people that interact with you on a daily basis and you act human around them, they'll act human around you. Like, that's the way to do it. So,
yeah, there are a lot of famous people and rich people who do this. I think
like
the
there's
right way.
many people that do it well. Yeah. And they've sort of laid the roadmap for, and it's a very hard thing to it. Like Matt, the level of like just narcissistic you kind of have to adopt to acknowledge the fact that, right? Like you went to a school in Florida, and did people come up to you and tell you you changed their life? Mm-hmm. Like that, we experienced that, and the impact of having more people than you can count walk up to you and tell you, "You've completely changed my life," is something that will affect you psychologically, and you have to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. And like that, you will go through some type of personal growth around that, in my opinion, if you are doing it properly. And I think where everyone is going to end up is somewhere different. And Hollywood is like LA is like a cesspool for just like narcissistic
pedophiles.
Like, yeah, I mean, and like the things that they do in secret are like really sick and weird, and like you lose your humanity because people don't treat you like human and you don't act human, and it's just like weird. And I have no desire.
Well, I will not be seeing a Will Smith movie. Probably wouldn't anyways, but.
And this is where like we call the term internally dental famous. And it's in my mind, it is like the perfect degree of fame because no one gives a shit about us. Like no one gives a shit about some dude in dentistry.
You'll
like,
never be stopped on the street.
Never be stopped on the street. Like I'll never be recognized at an airport. Like actually, I've recognized an airport one time, but like, like I'll never be, like I'll never deviate from regular life. But at the same time, I get to leverage being well known to do things that I would not be capable of doing in my career otherwise. So I've decided to keep my well-knownness only within dentistry and not go beyond that, because that's when I think you start trading. I can accomplish all of my financial goals.
We'll see, though.
Dentistry.
It's not always your choice at the end of the day. We'll see what happens. You can try to keep it, but who knows?
So I've created a fake name on the internet for this intention. Because I want all of my future pursuits to be under an alias.
Oh, that's great. That's a great idea. Especially making connections on social media.
Yeah. So I have a fake name on social media, and it's totally anonymous, and I share more there than I do in public life. But you can't find it.
And then when you do talk to someone, you can hand select who that is, and obviously they'll know your real name, and
So this is what Mark Cuban is going down with, what he calls the Metaverse. So that's like the Web3 is creating like the anonymous internet. It's called the Metaverse, and it's where you only share your metadata, where you are posting like, all of those things, but you don't share your name or any of your details. So it's kind of like what we do with Practice Underwater, right? Real person, fake name, and we just like told all their stats, but we just hide like who they are. So that's where I will proceed to explore my ambition, and I will remain dentistry to be the area where I'm known as my first and last name. Yeah, that's a personal choice I made until the kids come into play and choose something. I feel like it's the kids that are more affected by me being famous than me actually. And so I don't want to become more well known without them making that choice as a collective.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But that's when you say things on air, it's time stamped. So at this moment in time, that is what I believe. You are listening to the $1 Billion Podcast. Couple of nobodies on this $1 billion couch.
There's a wall in the back.
Yeah, look at this. And during the episode, 2 of our things fell off the wall because they were poorly taped. I don't know if anyone else noticed that on YouTube. But anyway, thanks for listening. It's been a great episode. We'll be back with you next week.